Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's Young here and welcome to an Elder Scrolls Online news update. Gaming website Digital Spy recently sat down with game director Matt Firor to talk about the game. Now, if you've been following my Elder Scrolls Online news update, a lot of the information in this interview will be familiar. They talk about the setting of the Second Era and exploring a section of the lore of Elder Scrolls and the land of Tamriel that is shrouded in mystery, allowing them to tell compelling stories. They talk about how this game has the best of Elder Scrolls with freedom to explore, mouse-driven combat, awesome lore setting and world, along with the best of MMOs as well, with social systems, co-op, PvP, and much more. They also talk about the questing system and how they want to make it so that players encounter quests as they explore rather than through generic talk to the NPCs with exclamation marks. As the interviewer puts it, players could walk in one direction and find many points of interest scattered across the land that will give players quests. Players won't have to look for quests, quests will find the players, much like the single-player Elder Scrolls games. They also talk about a few topics which have not been extensively touched upon before. I mentioned what they're trying to do with questing, but many may still be wondering, how will players be rewarded for the quest they complete? In typical MMOs, players have to go all the way back to the NPCs to be rewarded. In Elder Scrolls Online, players will receive their reward within the quest. If you've played games like Skyrim, you'll know what I mean. In Skyrim, most quests will have players finding valuable items or gold somewhere close to the end of the quest. Now, of course, to complete the quest for good, depending on the situations, players may still have to go back to the NPC to report, but this will make rewards less generic. I mean, finding awesome rewards while performing a quest or while exploring a dungeon is definitely more exciting than having NPCs with exclamation marks handing them out. Within the topic of quests, they also talk a bit about the user interface, specifically the compass, which will guide players with markers during quests like in the single-player Elder Scrolls games. Let's talk about the UI for a second. The developers for this game are aiming for something very minimalistic, with as little clutter as possible. A lot of people may have missed it, but we've actually already seen the UI, or at least an early version of it, in 2 videos. This is from the video called An Introduction to Elder Scrolls Online. On the bottom right corner, you have the compass. It's not a bar like in Oblivion and Skyrim, but this compass will also serve as a mini-map. Below the compass, you will find information such as time and current location. Players will also have access to a full map as shown here, with familiar icons indicating landmarks and points of interest. In the center, players will see the classic Elder Scrolls Crosshair. Again, the guys developing this game want to make this feel like Elder Scrolls as much as possible. When you aim this crosshair at a point of interest, such as an NPC, the crosshair will indicate that you can interact with it using the E button. Furthermore, aiming at living creatures will have their health bar appear at the top, much like the single-player games. On the right side, you will find a box with little blurbs and information about what you are aiming at. Here, when the player points at the Way Shrine, the box tells the player what it is, and when pointing at the NPC, the box tells the player the NPC's name and level. I also found 2 images in an interview video from Game Informer. On the bottom left corner, these images show the classic MMO chat box, or whatever it's actually called, which will allow players to communicate with each other. The bottom of the screen has what everyone can expect in an MMO, a hotbar, which players can use to quickly access skills, equipment, and potions. On the top right corner, you can see these squares, and I am assuming those are passive effects like buffs. Interestingly enough, the health, magicka, and stamina bars are nowhere to be seen. I'm sure they're hidden somewhere the same way Skyrim hides the sections of the UI that are not in use, but the question is where? Let me know in the comments below if you have any idea. Alright, now that we got the user interface stuff out of the way, let's talk about first person. Some have been saying there is first person, others have heard that first person view will be absent from the game. Well, Matt Firor himself has the final word. For now, there most certainly is a first person view. However, unfortunately, players won't be able to do much with it since hands and weapons are not shown, like in the single player Elder Scrolls games. So at this point, the first person view is more for sightseeing. This is unfortunate, and I hope they will find a way to implement first-person view in this game. Keep in mind, however, this is an MMO, so what works in a single-player game may not necessarily work or balance out in an MMO, so that may be the reason for the limited first-person view. We'll see what happens. And finally, Matt Firor talks about teamwork and PvP. He wants to make sure that cooperation brings benefits and not compromises. He wants to completely avoid players being able to kill steal or ninja loot. In other words, all players working together will be rewarded equally. When it comes to PvP, it will tie in with the story and conflict of the three alliances fighting over the crumbling empire. According to Matt, players have to find, control, and defend structures and locations such as strongholds, keeps, and towns scattered across the land of Cyrodiil. And the alliance that controls enough of these strongholds will control Cyrodiil. A player can even be crowned emperor after the dust clears. I don't know what that means for the player to be emperor and how this emperor will be chosen out of the many that participate in PvP, but we will find out with time. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, a huge update on the highly anticipated Elder Scrolls Online. The game is so anticipated that the Facebook page has already crossed the 1 million likes mark, which is fantastic. Hopefully the game lives up to the hype when it launches. To be further updated on Elder Scrolls Online, join the NASIAN and subscribe to Yonggear. Here you will also find coverage of AAA franchises like Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Metal Gear Solid, The Legend of Zelda, Super Smash Bros., and much more. Also, subscribe to Young Gaming for my Let's Plays. So subscribe to both and join the NASIAN, because every gamer needs a NASIAN. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much, and Young out!